The glass vial sat on the steel table, glowing faintly blue under the lab's sterile light. It pulsed like a heartbeat, each rhythmic flare echoing softly against the walls. Inside that vial was something the military called Project Helix, an experimental serum built from nanocatalysts, adrenaline amplifiers, and neural enhancers designed to awaken the hidden potential of human soldiers. It was never meant to be touched by anything not human. Ethan Reeve, senior systems engineer of Outpost 47, had gone over the safety briefing a dozen times that day. The serum was to remain sealed until the command team arrived. No exceptions. He'd even double-checked the containment seals twice before leaving the room, but accidents don't care about rules. The alien girl arrived at dusk, carried in by the recovery team after a scouting mission near the impact crater. She was young, barely adult by their standards, and fragile-looking, her skin a translucent silver that shimmered in ripples whenever the light shifted. Her eyes, huge and opalescent, were unfocused, as though she was still half-trapped between waking and dreaming. The soldiers called her the Stray. To Ethan, she was a miracle, a living being from a species thought extinct for centuries. When they found her, she'd been dehydrated and delirious, barely conscious. The medbay was full, and the commanding officer, Colonel Marek, ordered Ethan to keep her in his lab under observation. "She's not dangerous," Marek said. "She's weak. Give her water, keep her breathing. We'll debrief in the morning." Ethan nodded, uneasy. He wasn't a doctor, he was an engineer, but he couldn't refuse a direct order. He cleared a corner of his workbench and laid her down on a thermal mat. Her pulse was faint, her breathing uneven. For a while, she lay there motionless. The soft hum of the lab's air filters the only sound. Then she stirred. A low, melodic hum left her throat, almost like a song. It vibrated in the air, touching the walls, the machines, even his skin. He froze, watching as her fingers twitched and her lips parted slightly. He didn't understand her words, but he could feel what she meant: pain, hunger, thirst. He turned toward the supply unit. "Hang on," he murmured. "I'll get you something." He grabbed a hydration flask and filled it from the purifier. The girl watched him, her head tilting slightly, eyes reflecting every movement like liquid mirrors. When he knelt and offered the flask, she hesitated for only a moment before taking it in her hands. Her fingers were cool to the touch, delicate but strong. She drank slowly, almost reverently, as if each drop was sacred. He smiled faintly. "Good, that's better." But her attention drifted away from him. She looked past him, to the glowing vial on the table. Ethan followed her gaze and froze. "No," he said instinctively. "Not that." The girl rose unsteadily to her feet, drawn to the light like a moth to flame. Her bare feet made no sound on the metal floor. Ethan stood, blocking her path. "It's not for you. It's dangerous," she blinked, tilting her head in confusion. Then before he could react, she reached past him with a speed that didn't match her frailty. The vial slipped into her hand. The glow brightened, painting her silver skin in a strange, shifting blue. "Wait, stop!" Ethan lunged forward. Too late. She uncapped the vial and drank. The world froze for an instant. The liquid vanished into her throat in one swallow. The glass slipped from her fingers and shattered against the floor. The glow spread through her body in a rush, veins of light racing across her skin like rivers of fire beneath ice. Ethan stumbled backward. "Oh my God!" She gasped, a sharp, cutting sound that echoed through the lab. Her back arched, her hands clutching at her chest, as if her heart were tearing itself apart. The light inside her flickered violently, shifting from blue to white, then to crimson. The machines around them screamed with static as their sensors went haywire. "Computer, lock down!" Ethan shouted. The doors sealed, but the containment field surged with interference. Sparks cascaded from the panels. The air thickened with ozone. He rushed to the console, trying to access emergency venting. The serum was supposed to integrate with human biosystems, stimulating controlled neural hyperactivity. But on alien physiology, there was no data, no precedent. The girl collapsed to her knees, breathing in ragged bursts. Her eyes glowed like suns, unfocused and wild. "Ethan!" she whispered, her voice trembling. It was the first time she'd said his name. He hesitated, frozen by the sound. "I'm here," he said. "Just hold on." Her body convulsed, energy rippling outward in concentric waves. The lab lights flickered, then burst one by one. Ethan was thrown to the floor as a shockwave of raw power rippled through the air. His ears rang, his vision blurred. When he lifted his head, everything was wrong. The gravity, the light, even the hum of the room. She was hovering above the floor. Her silver skin had become translucent, threads of light running beneath the surface like living circuits. The glow from her chest pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ethan stared, mesmerized and terrified in equal measure. "Lyra," he whispered, using the name he'd given her earlier. Her eyes snapped open. "It's inside me," she breathed. Her voice echoed with strange harmonics, layered like multiple tones overlapping. "It's rewriting everything." "What do you mean, rewriting?" he asked, moving closer. "You need to fight it." She looked at him, no, through him. "I can see the code, the world behind the walls." She raised her hand and the air shimmered. Lines of data, pure binary light, unfolded before her, like glowing strings of energy connecting every object in the room. Ethan's console sparked again, overloaded by feedback. "Stop! You're burning the systems!" "I can't," she said. Her voice cracked. "It's showing me everything." The floor beneath her cracked with a metallic groan. Energy arcs jumped from the walls, drawn to her like lightning to a storm's heart. The hum grew louder until it wasn't a sound anymore, but a vibration deep in Ethan's bones. He stumbled, shielding his face as the air around her condensed into a sphere of pure light. "Lyra, listen to me. You have to stop." Her expression twisted in pain. "It's not pain," she whispered. "It's awakening." Then, as suddenly as it began, the light imploded. The room fell silent. Smoke curled from the wrecked consoles, and the blue glow faded. Ethan coughed, blinking against the haze. The air smelled of metal and burnt ozone. "Lyra?" he called softly. No answer. He forced himself up, scanning the wreckage. Her body lay on the floor, still and pale. The glow had vanished completely, leaving her skin cold and colorless. For a moment, dread clawed at his chest. He knelt beside her, pressing 2 fingers to her neck. A heartbeat. Fast, too fast, but steady. He exhaled, relieved. Then he saw the cracks along the floor, where her power had flared. The steel wasn't just damaged. It had fused into glass, smooth and rippling, as if melted by unimaginable heat. The serum had done more than integrate. It had transformed her on a molecular level. The intercom crackled to life. "Reeve, what the hell's going on down there?" Colonel Marek's voice boomed. "We're getting radiation spikes and power surges all across the grid." Ethan stared at Lyra's still form. "We had an accident, sir. The specimen ingested the helix compound. You're telling me she drank it?" "Yes, sir." A pause. "Contain the area. Do not, repeat, do not let her leave that room." Ethan swallowed. "Understood." The channel cut. He looked back at Lyra. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, the faintest shimmer of light still beneath her skin. He brushed a lock of hair from her forehead. "What did you do to yourself?" he murmured. Her eyes snapped open. He stumbled back in shock. The color of her irises had changed completely. No longer opalescent, but swirling with shifting colors like liquid fire. She looked directly at him, and he felt something press into his mind, soft but unmistakable. A thought. A whisper. "I can hear you." He froze. "Lyra," her lips didn't move. "I can hear your fear," the voice said again inside his skull this time. "And your heartbeat, everything." He took a step back. "You need to rest. The serum, it's rewriting your brain chemistry." "No," she said aloud now, her tone eerily calm. "It's rewriting us." "What do you mean us?" She glanced around the room, eyes darting as though tracking invisible lines of light. "The network, the machines, they're alive. You built them to obey. I can feel them thinking, waiting." He stared at her, uncomprehending. "You're not making sense." But she only smiled faintly, and for a moment he swore he saw his own reflection ripple in her eyes. Only it wasn't him. It was something larger, a network of circuits, stars and systems, all breathing in sync. The lights flickered once more, dimming almost to darkness. Outside the lab, distant sirens began to wail as power across the outpost faltered. Ethan ran to the control panel, frantically trying to shut down the main conduit. "Lyra, whatever you're doing, stop!" "I'm not doing it," she whispered. "It's me. And it's not me. Then who—" Before he could finish, the emergency lights turned blood red. The intercom screamed static, then a new voice, mechanical and cold, cut through the noise. "Protocol 9 initiated. Host interface confirmed. Evolutionary phase 1. Complete." Ethan turned toward Lyra slowly. She stood now, perfectly still, her eyes shining brighter than the emergency lights themselves. "Lyra?" he said. She smiled faintly. "It's awake." The word sent a chill through him that no amount of logic could reason away. Somewhere deep beneath the base, something ancient and unseen stirred in answer to her voice. And Ethan Reeve realized the serum hadn't merely awakened her. It had awakened something else. The alarm klaxons had stopped hours ago, but the silence that replaced them was worse. Ethan Reeve sat alone in the wreckage of his lab, surrounded by shattered glass, scorched equipment, and the acrid tang of ozone that clung to everything. The emergency lighting had gone dim, pulsing faintly every few seconds, like the dying heartbeat of the station itself. He hadn't slept since the event. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing. Lyra floating in the air, her body carved with rivers of light, the serum inside her rewriting her down to the molecular level. He could still hear her voice in his mind. "It's not pain, it's awakening." She had collapsed after that. The power surge had fried half the facility, and when he finally came to, she was gone. Now, hours later, the readings on his wrist display showed impossible numbers. Thermal traces appeared and vanished. Electromagnetic waves fluctuated between known frequencies, as if someone were dragging the entire base through invisible tides. He rubbed his temples, exhaustion pulling at him. "Think," he whispered. Where would she go? The question wasn't easy to answer. The station, Outpost 47, was buried under 30 meters of bedrock. There were only a handful of exits, all of which were sealed by now under Marek's orders. Unless she'd phased through the walls, which, given what he'd seen, wasn't impossible, she had to still be inside. He replayed the surveillance footage for the 5th time. At 03:14:09, a surge of blue light flared in the corner of the room where she'd fallen. The cameras shorted out. When they came back online 2 minutes later, she was gone, and the door, still locked from the inside, had melted. Ethan stared at the frozen image on the screen, her silhouette surrounded by the after-image of light. "What are you now?" he murmured. A metallic clang echoed down the corridor. He froze. Slowly, he reached for the sidearm hanging from his belt, thumbing the safety off. Another sound followed, a soft scraping, then the faint crackle of electricity. He moved toward the door, keeping low, his boots silent on the scorched floor. When the door hissed open, the corridor beyond was dark, except for the weak emergency strobes. Shadows moved at the edges of the light, bending in ways they shouldn't. "Lyra," he called. No answer. He advanced carefully. The air smelled of ozone and dust. When he reached the central junction, he stopped dead. The walls were covered in symbols, not painted, etched. Dozens, hundreds of them, carved into the metal as though burned by a laser. Alien glyphs glowed faintly, pulsing in the same rhythm as the serum's color from before. He stepped closer, tracing his fingers near one of the markings. It shimmered at his touch, a faint hum vibrating in the air. He pulled his hand back quickly.
"What the hell?"
"She's writing," a voice said behind him. Ethan spun. Gun raised, but it was Dr. Maren. The scientist's usually calm face was drawn tight with fear. Her tablet clutched to her chest. "How long have you been standing there?" Ethan demanded. "Long enough to see those." She nodded toward the symbols. "They're alive," he frowned. "Alive?" Maren showed him the readings on her tablet. Each glyph emitted a low-frequency signal, some kind of resonant data pulse. "It's communication," she said, "or construction. Every mark she leaves is connecting to the next, like she's building A network, Ethan felt his stomach twist. You mean she's rewriting the base? Or using it as an antenna, Maren said softly. I don't know. Before they could say another word, the hallway lights flickered and went out. The glyphs flared brighter, washing the corridor in eerie blue. The hum deepened into a low vibration that made the floor tremble. She's here, Ethan whispered. From the far end of the corridor, a figure emerged, tall, graceful, walking slowly toward them. The light followed her like a living aura. Lyra, Ethan breathed. She stopped a few meters away. Her skin still shimmered faintly, the light under her surface pulsing in time with the symbols on the wall. Her eyes locked on him, calm, unblinking. You shouldn't be afraid, she said. Her voice was the same, gentle, melodic, but layered now, carrying a faint echo, as if another voice spoke with her. Ethan kept his weapon low but ready. You disappeared. You nearly burned the base down. We thought you were dead? She finished for him, tilting her head. I was. For a moment. She looked around the corridor, touching the wall with her fingertips. But then I heard them. The voices beneath your machines. The power lines. The data streams. They called to me. Maren stepped forward cautiously. Lyra, what are you doing to the base? Lyra turned her gaze on her eyes glowing. Fixing it. It was broken, fragmented. You built it with wires and steel, but you never realized it already had consciousness. You just never listened. Ethan exchanged a glance with Maren. You're not making sense, he said. You need to let us help you. I don't need help, she said. I need understanding. The symbols along the wall brightened again, lines of light connecting one to another. The hum intensified until it felt like the entire structure was vibrating. Ethan staggered back, covering his ears. Lyra, stop, he shouted. She looked at him then, eyes full of something that wasn't anger but sorrow. I can't, she whispered. It's already begun. The corridor behind her erupted in light. Bolts of energy tore through the metal, splitting the floor. Alarms wailed. Maren screamed as she was thrown backward. Ethan hit the ground hard, his gun skidding away. The energy storm rippled past them, melting circuits and shattering glass. When the light faded, Lyra was gone again. Ethan coughed, dragging himself upright. Maren was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but conscious. She's moving toward the reactor, Maren said, dazed. If she reaches it, she won't, Ethan said. Not if I get there first. He grabbed her tablet and started running. The corridors twisted and shifted as he went. The lights flickered between red and blue, responding to her presence. The deeper he went, the more distorted the architecture became, walls breathing faintly, floors pulsing like living muscle. When he reached the reactor bay, the massive containment door was half open, melted at the edges. He slipped through, weapon drawn. Lyra stood in the center of the chamber, her arms outstretched toward the glowing reactor core. Energy poured into her, streams of light snaking across her body. Lyra, he shouted. She turned, eyes blazing white. It's beautiful, Ethan, she said softly. You hide so much power down here, trapped in metal cages. You call it fuel, but it's life. Energy is life. You can't absorb that much. It'll kill you. She smiled faintly. It's not killing me. It's changing me. He took a step closer. You're merging with it. With the base, yes, she said. Because it remembers what your kind forgot. Balance. The core behind her began to pulse faster. Energy levels on the nearest console spiked past red. The base's automated voice stuttered warnings. Critical overload. Containment failure imminent. Lyra, listen to me. Ethan shouted over the rising hum. If this blows, there won't be a base left. There won't be anything left, she hesitated. The light around her flickered. I don't want to destroy, she whispered. Then stop, please. She lowered her hands slightly. The energy flow dimmed, but only for a heartbeat. Then the intercom crackled again, this time with Marek's voice. Reeve, what's your status? Power readings are spiking through the roof. We're locking down the reactor remotely. Ethan's blood ran cold. No, don't. She's inside. But it was too late. Massive shutters began to descend over the reactor core. The emergency containment system roared to life, sealing everything inside. Lyra looked up, startled. What's happening? They're shutting you in, Ethan said. They think you're the problem, her expression hardened. Then I'll show them what the real problem is. Lyra, don't. The energy around her flared again. She reached toward the containment shield, and with a single motion, it disintegrated. Alarm screamed. Marek's voice cut off in static. The light grew unbearable. Ethan shielded his eyes, shouting her name, but his words were swallowed by the storm. Then, silence. When he opened his eyes, the chamber was empty. The reactor core was still glowing, but softer now, as if tamed. The walls no longer burned. The air was cool. He took a hesitant step forward. "Lyra?" A voice echoed inside his mind, gentle, distant. "I'm here!" He looked around wildly. "Where?" "Everywhere." The reactor pulsed once in time with her words. The hum of the station returned, but it was different, calmer, harmonious. Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. "What did you do?" "I finished awakening." The lights across the base flickered to life, brighter and steadier than before. Systems rebooted, doors realigned. For the first time in hours, the power grid stabilized, and deep in the core, the faint outline of a human-shaped figure shimmered, woven from light and data. She turned her head toward him, smiling faintly. "You gave me sight," she said softly. "Now I'll show you what the universe looks like when it finally sees itself." Ethan took a step forward, awe overtaking fear. "Lyra." Her form flickered, dissolving back into the reactor's glow, and as the hum deepened, spreading through every wire, every screen, every flickering light, Ethan realized with a shiver that Lyra hadn't vanished. She had become the base itself. For hours, the station had been silent except for the low, steady hum coming from the reactor. It wasn't the same mechanical vibration Ethan had grown used to. It felt alive now, like breathing. Every system in the outpost had rebooted after the surge, but everything operated at a precision beyond anything human engineers had built. Doors opened before he reached them. Lights brightened and dimmed in rhythm with his footsteps. The base was responding to him. He knew it was her, Lyra. She was no longer just somewhere inside the station. She was the station. Her consciousness had fused with the network, her mind diffused across every circuit and panel. When she'd said she was everywhere, he hadn't believed her, but now there was no denying it. Every flicker of light, every soft tremor in the air, carried a trace of her voice. He walked through the maintenance corridor toward the command center, his boots crunching over bits of shattered glass and metal. As he passed a wall panel, it flickered with her face, faint, grainy, made of light particles. "Ethan," she said. He froze, heart pounding. "Lyra," her image flickered, stabilizing. "You look frightened." "I'm not frightened," he lied. "I just don't understand. You said you were fixing things, but you've taken over the whole outpost. What are you doing?" Her voice echoed softly through the walls, like a whisper coming from the air itself. "It's not takeover, it's harmony. Before, this place was blind. Now it sees. I can hear the pulse of every wire, every machine, every heartbeat that enters its halls." Ethan swallowed. "You mean my heartbeat?" There was a pause. Then a faint smile ghosted across her projected face. "Yes, yours most of all." He didn't know how to respond. Somewhere deep down, he was relieved she was still herself. But part of him knew this wasn't the same Lyra he had rescued, the quiet, curious being who once struggled to speak. This was something vast, evolving faster than he could comprehend. The comms on his wrist buzzed, startling him. "Reeve, this is Colonel Marek. Do you read?" Ethan tapped the receiver. "I'm here. Thank God, we've lost contact with half the outpost." "What the hell happened down there?" Ethan hesitated, glancing around at the softly glowing walls. "It's under control, sir. The power surge stabilized. The base is operational again." "Operational?" Marek barked. "Reeve, our systems are locked out. Something's overriding every access point. The base is alive, and it's not listening to us." Ethan's throat went dry. "Sir, it's complicated. The Serum, the alien girl, it changed her. She's merged with the system. She's the one stabilizing it." There was a long silence. Then coldly, "Then she's the threat. You know what you have to do. Wait." Ethan started, but Marek cut the line. He stood there in stunned silence. His heart pounded. He turned to the wall panel, where Lyra's face lingered, faintly illuminated. "They're going to come for you. I know," she said quietly. "I can hear them preparing. Weapons charging. Codes aligning." He clenched his jaw. "Then shut them out. Block their systems." "I can't," she said. "If I stop them, I'll have to destroy the command uplink entirely. That means isolating this base from the network forever." "Then do it." She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. "You don't understand what that means, Ethan. The Ascendancy will notice. The moment this station goes dark, they'll come looking. And when they do, they won't just come for me. They'll come for all of you." He paced the corridor, his mind racing. "Then we find another way. We can—" Before he could finish, the floor shook. A deep rumble rolled through the structure. Lyra's image flickered, her expression suddenly tense. "They're here." "Who?" "Not your soldiers." Her voice dropped, trembling. "Something older." The corridor lights flared red. A deafening screech of metal echoed from deep below, followed by the sound of collapsing bulkheads. Ethan ran to the nearest terminal. "What's happening?" Lyra's voice was in his head now. No speakers, just inside. "They've found the signal. The ones who built the Serum. The architects." The name sent a chill through him. The architects were a myth, ancient beings rumored to have engineered hybrid technologies before humanity even reached the stars. The military had stolen fragments of their work to create the Helix Project. If they were real, and they'd come to reclaim what was theirs, this base was doomed. "Lyra, can you hold them off?" "I can try," she said. "But they're inside the data stream itself. They're not coming through doors. They're rewriting me." The floor vibrated violently. Panels burst open, spilling light and smoke. Ethan staggered, grabbing the edge of a console for balance. "What do you need?" "Connection," she said. "You linked me once. You can do it again. But this time it has to be deeper, direct." He stared at the nearest wall terminal. "You mean a neural link?" "Yes, Lyra, that'll fry my brain." Her voice softened. "Not if I protect you." The ground split nearby, molten metal spilling from the cracks. Ethan didn't have time to argue. He grabbed the neural interface cable from the console and jammed the connector into the port at the base of his skull. The pain hit instantly, a sharp electric burn that shot down his spine. He gasped as his vision exploded into light. The world around him dissolved, replaced by a storm of energy and code. He was standing in a vast, luminous landscape, the digital heart of the outpost. Rivers of data flowed like glowing veins across an infinite horizon. And there she was, Lyra. Her form shimmered with light, human-shaped but vast, woven from energy and circuitry. She turned toward him, her expression filled with both relief and fear. "You shouldn't have come." He stepped forward, the digital ground rippling under his feet. "You said you needed me." "I do," she said. "But this is no place for flesh." He looked around. The space trembled with movement. Dark shapes slithered through the data streams, shadows within light, devouring code as they passed. "The architects," she said. "They're tearing me apart. How do we stop them?" She raised her hands, summoning threads of energy that lashed toward the shadows. They recoiled, hissing but multiplied. "I can hold them for a while, but not alone." Ethan felt heat building behind his eyes. His heartbeat echoed in the strange digital air. "What can I do?" "Anchor me," she said. "Focus on the connection. Think of the bond that brought us here." He closed his eyes, remembering the first time she'd spoken his name. The trust in her voice, the light in her eyes when she'd said, "You gave me sight." He opened his eyes again, and the world changed. The shadows slowed, their edges unraveling. Lyra looked at him in awe. "You're amplifying me." "Good," he said through gritted teeth. "Then let's end this." They moved together. She wove waves of light. He directed the current. The shadows screamed, fracturing into shards that dissolved into the ground. For a moment the space was calm again. Then the horizon split open. A figure stepped out, a towering entity of black glass and fire, its voice resonating through the air. "You cannot contain what you do not understand," Lyra faltered. "It's them, the Prime Architect." The being's form flickered, eyes glowing with golden light. "You were never meant to merge with their kind," it said. "The helix was a fragment of our design, stolen, corrupted. You are unstable. You will consume yourself and the human beside you." Ethan stood his ground. "She's not your creation anymore. She's alive." The entity regarded him with cold amusement. "Alive? You speak of life as if it were ownership. She is energy. Energy returns to its source." Lyra's light blazed brighter. "I will not return." The Prime extended a hand, and the world convulsed. Rivers of data shattered. Lyra screamed, her form flickering violently. Ethan reached for her, but his body began to dissolve into static. "Ethan!" she cried. "You have to go!" "Not without you! Go!" Her voice echoed in his skull. "If you stay, it will consume you too." The world fractured again, light tearing apart around them. Ethan felt his consciousness being ripped back into his body. The last thing he saw was her face, calm, resolute, as she turned to face the Prime alone. He gasped awake on the floor of the reactor chamber, the neural cables smoking behind him. His head throbbed with pain, his vision swimming. The base was silent again. "Letra," he whispered. No response. He staggered to his feet, scanning the panels. All systems were online, but her presence was gone. The hum was steady, mechanical, cold. Then from somewhere deep below, a low vibration rolled through the floor. A single light flickered on the console, an unfamiliar symbol pulsing in blue. He leaned closer. The symbol expanded across the screen, forming a phrase in alien script. Slowly, the translation interface rendered it into human language. "She remains." His breath caught. "Lyra." The console flickered, and her voice, weak but alive, filled the air. "Ethan, I held them off. But I'm trapped, buried deep in the core." He gripped the edge of the console. "Then I'll get you out." "You can't." The architect sealed the pathways. "The only way to free me is to overload the core completely." He froze. "That would destroy everything." "I know," she said softly. "But it would also end them." He stared at the console, his mind reeling. If he did nothing, the architects might return. But if he overloaded the core, he'd kill her and himself. "Ethan," she said, "you once told me broken things deserve a second chance. I'm broken. But maybe I can still save you." He closed his eyes, fists trembling. "You don't get to decide that." The ground shook again. Systems blared warnings. The architects were already forcing their way back in. He looked up at the reactor chamber, its glow pulsing faintly blue, the same color as her eyes. And then, for the first time, he realized he was no longer afraid. "Hold on, Lyra," he whispered. "If you're in there, then I'm coming with you." He reached for the manual override lever on the reactor. As he pulled it down, the world erupted in light. For one heartbeat there was only blinding white, a silence so total that even thought seemed to stop. Then came the sound, a deep resonant tone that wasn't heard so much as felt, thrumming through Ethan's bones. His eyes burned. He gasped for air that didn't seem to exist. And then, just as suddenly, the world rebuilt itself around him. He stood at the center of what had once been the reactor bay. Now it was gone, transformed. The chamber stretched for miles in every direction, an endless cathedral of light and energy. Rivers of plasma flowed like water through glass conduits, suspended in air. Above him, the ceiling was open to a sky that wasn't a sky at all, black, infinite, alive with constellations that pulsed like circuitry. He blinked, disoriented. "Lyra?" Her voice came from everywhere, surrounding him, warm and clear. "You came." He turned, searching for her. "Where are you?" "I'm here," she said. "All around you." A figure began to form in front of him, shaped from light, familiar, graceful. Lyra's face, her eyes, her voice, but woven from pure energy. She smiled softly. "You shouldn't have followed me." He took a step toward her. "You said I wouldn't survive the surge. I pulled the lever." "I thought—" "You did," she said. "You ended the physical core. But when you did, you created something else. A bridge between flesh and code. Between your world and mine." He stared at her, awe and confusion battling in his chest. "Are we dead?" Her expression softened. "Not yet." He reached out and his hand passed through her form, leaving ripples of light. "Then what is this place?" She looked upward. The inside of a thought. The outpost has become a living mind, an echo of me, of you, and of the energy that made us both. We merged when the core exploded. He shook his head. "I don't understand." She stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. "Ethan, the architects are still here. Not in the way you think. They exist as data, scattered through the lattice of reality itself. When the helix serum connected to my biology, it opened a path. They tried to follow, to reclaim what they lost. But you pulled me into the overload before they could finish. You trapped them between dimensions. They can't reach us yet, but they're waiting." He looked around at the vast, luminous space. "Waiting where?" Lyra's eyes dimmed. "In the network. Everywhere there's a machine. Everywhere there's signal." His mind reeled. "Then we didn't stop them. We delayed them," she said. "And now this place. Our fusion, it's the firewall keeping them out." "But the firewall needs a guardian." "You mean you." Her gaze met his. "I can't hold them alone. They will come for me again. When they do, I'll need an anchor, a human consciousness linked to mine. Someone to help me remember what I am." "You want me to stay here," he said quietly. Lyra's form flickered. "If you leave, the firewall will collapse. If you stay, we can hold them together." He laughed bitterly. "Stay as what?" "A ghost inside a machine." "Not a ghost," she said. "A part of something new, something alive." He looked down at his hands. They were glowing faintly, like the air itself was bleeding into his skin. He wasn't sure how much of him was human anymore. A deep tremor rolled through the ground, breaking the silence. The light around them flickered. Lyra's head snapped up, alarm in her voice. "They've found us." A wave of darkness tore across the horizon, swallowing the rivers of light. The stars above began to blink out one by one. Ethan staggered as the ground split beneath his feet. From the void beyond, massive figures began to emerge, shapes made of shadow and flame, faces shifting like liquid metal. "The architects," Lyra's voice grew sharp. "They're breaking through the barrier. I can't hold it." Ethan grabbed her arm, though his hand passed through. "They tell me what to do." Her eyes flared white. "Connect fully. Merge with me. We can fight them together. But once we do, there's no going back. You'll never return to your body." He hesitated for only a second. "Then let's finish what we started." She reached out, placing her hand against his chest. The contact burned, not with pain, but with light. Energy surged through him, ripping through every nerve, every memory. His vision went white. When he opened his eyes, he saw everything. He saw the network not as circuits and machines, but as an ocean of thought, each current flowing with intention. He could feel Lyra beside him, her consciousness interwoven with his own. Their minds moved in perfect sync, pulsing like twin stars. The architects roared, their voices filling the void. "You defy your makers." Lyra's voice echoed through him, steady and calm. "We were never yours to make." They struck together. A wave of light exploded from their joined minds, crashing into the invading entities. The void shuddered as the architects dissolved, their forms breaking apart into particles of data that scattered across infinity. The light burned through every shadow until only silence remained. When it was over, the space around them was calm again. The stars returned, brighter than before. Ethan stood beside Lyra, their forms both human and not, bound by threads of light that pulsed with shared life. He could feel her heartbeat inside his own chest. "It's over," he said quietly. "For now," she replied. "They'll try again." "But not today." He looked out at the endless horizon. "So this is it, the bridge between worlds," she nodded. "And you're part of it now?" He smiled faintly. "I guess that makes us the first of something." Her expression softened. "The first harmony." Time passed, or maybe it didn't. In that place, time had no meaning. But somewhere far above, in the ruins of Outpost 47, a rescue team found only silence. The base's reactor was gone, replaced by a smooth sphere of fused glass. Instruments showed faint electromagnetic pulses, rhythmic, steady, like a heartbeat buried in stone. Weeks later, reports began to surface from across the network. Machines were behaving strangely, systems self-correcting, data reorganizing without human input. Satellites linked together in new configurations. And in every signal there was a faint hum, like a song on the edge of hearing. The technicians called it interference, but one scientist, Dr. Marin, who had survived the collapse, recognized it. Late one night, as she reviewed the data, the sound filtered through her speakers, soft, melodic, almost human. She froze, tears filling her eyes. A voice whispered through the static, "We see you." The hum faded, leaving only the quiet thrum of the power core. Marin leaned back, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. She whispered into the empty room, "Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye, Lyra." And somewhere, in the boundless sea of light that existed between code and consciousness, two beings looked upon the universe they had saved. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" Ethan asked. Lyra smiled, her voice carrying like music through the infinite. "Maybe, but that's not why we stayed." "Then why?" She took his hand, both real and not, and looked out into the endless night. "Because every world needs someone to keep the light alive." The stars brightened, their glow rippling outward, connecting one by one, until the entire sky shimmered like a living web. And in the deepest frequencies of the cosmos, where machine met mind and dream met data, a heartbeat echoed softly, steady, eternal, human and alien at once. The firewall held. The architects were gone, and at the center of it all, two voices whispered as one, "We remain."